Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into a really fascinating first-hand account by author Zhu Feng. It's all about finding an absolute utopia in literally one of the harshest places on Earth. We're unpacking a text called A Passionate Life and Years of Burning Fervor, and it details the wild experiences of a community known as the Chanyuan Celestials. This is a story of absolute extremes, you guys. We're talking brutal survival contrasted with what the author calls ultimate spiritual liberation. Which brings us to the core question for today. How exactly does a group of people living in extreme physical hardship experience such profound joy and spiritual fulfillment, right? It's a huge paradox. We're going to explore how this community actually managed to turn severe deprivation into years of burning fervor. It completely flips our basic assumptions about what it actually takes to be happy. So let's jump right into Section 1, Journey to the Gobi, and look at their desperate relocation. The sheer scale of this move was driven by pure desperation. After suffering a massive loss in Yunnan, China, the group just fell into complete despair. Honestly, they didn't know how they were going to survive at all. So they packed up and traveled thousands of kilometers to set up new homes in the incredibly desolate Gobi Desert. Basically, they traded total despair for a physical way of life that was just infinitely harder. Which leads us into Section 2, the harsh, physical reality of having absolutely no holidays or rest. You see, the survival requirements here were just intense. Working from morning until night, every single day, the Chanyuan Celestials took on the hardest, dirtiest manual labor you can imagine. We're talking weeding, cultivating completely unyielding soil, picking up sheep dung for manure, rush planting trees in the spring, collecting firewood. I mean, literally building their own living rooms and toilets totally from scratch. Just a relentless, non-stop grind of physical exertion. And they were living in these simple, broken-down houses with virtually nothing to their names. When Zhu Feng writes that mud is the most valuable material, it really puts their extreme poverty into perspective, doesn't it? They weren't running out to grab modern construction supplies. They had to rely on the bare earth just to build their shelter and scrape by. Every single brick, every little stone had to be carefully accounted for. Naturally, all this relentless work took a severe, undeniable physical toll on their bodies. The exhaustion was so overwhelming that even basic hygiene just fell right off the priority list. The text describes members literally bleeding from their noses while working or actually falling asleep standing up in the middle of manual labor. And they'd be so incredibly wiped out after supper that they couldn't even manage to wash their faces or feet. They just completely collapse straight into bed. And to add to that already extreme physical reality, even getting basic sustenance was a daily struggle. They were eating incredibly modest meals and, get this, drinking highly concentrated saline alkaline water. So their main source of hydration was incredibly harsh, bitter, and salty. I mean, there was absolutely zero physical comfort to be found in this environment. None. Okay, moving on to Section 3, finding joy in adversity and creating an oasis from the rubbish. So with just their own bare hands, they actually cleared away all the rubbish and completely transformed this desolate Gobi environment into a vibrant oasis. The author notes with a lot of pride that the trees they rush planted started sprouting buds and leaves, the vegetable seedlings were growing, the whole area just became so full of energy and vitality that migrating wild geese started flocking there, alongside these joyous choruses of twittering sparrows. They literally built life straight out of the dust. Zhu Feng notes that despite living such a simple, bitter life, the group maintained this unbelievably buoyant attitude. Chanyuan Celestials are all optimists and romantics, the author writes. They would literally laugh and play as they walked around. The text explicitly points out that life there, even with the brutal work and total lack of holidays, was somehow always full of happiness and laughter. And there's this one vivid detail that just beautifully captures their reality. Picture this. They're sitting on tiny stools or even literal bricks and stones, eating their extremely modest supper, but they're telling jokes that make everyone laugh so hard they literally spit out their food. It's wild. Their humor and their deep camaraderie completely overshadowed the harsh reality of, eating dinner on a pile of rocks. They had to suspend their formal monthly parties because of the workload, but that daily frolicking and joking, that remained a massive part of their culture. To really understand this profound joy, we have to look at Section 4, the eternal bloom of youth, and their totally unique mindset. So how do these folks actually view themselves? Well, they see themselves as carefree children, and they proudly call themselves fools who never pursue selfish interests. But at the same time, they view themselves as aspiring pillars of the world, as celestials and Buddhas. They look at themselves through this deeply spiritual and totally selfless lens, basically shedding all their individual egos and personal ambitions just to serve the collective good. A massive part of this identity is built on what they call living in the now. And for them, living in the present isn't some trendy wellness cliche. It's this fiery, absolute detachment from any anxieties about the future or even the inevitability of death. They claim to have no considerations of life and death at all. They just ignore what tomorrow brings. Instead, they're solely focused on burning the passion of youth completely and purely right into the present moment. They literally just forget about time and bitterness entirely. And this intense, burning passion for living in the moment, it actually transcends physical age. According to the author, even if you're 80 years old in this community, you're still not considered an old person. Everyone is just in the bloom of youth, because here, youthfulness is viewed as a spiritual state, not a biological one. Their youth is, quote, burning so hard that the green trees are growing and beautiful flowers are blooming. Which ultimately brings us to our final section, the spiritual harvest and the idea of a divine test. The community doesn't just grit their teeth and endure these extreme hardships. They actually accept them as a deliberate divine test meant to spiritually purify them. They literally give thanks to the greatest creator for such an extraordinary life. So the hardship isn't a punishment at all. It's kind of the entire point of the exercise. Their foundational philosophy here is simple, but it is incredibly powerful. Just like impurities in gold disappear when you subject it to the extreme heat of a fire, they believe true virtue can only shine when it's forged in extreme adversity. So the Gobi Desert, that backbreaking manual labor, the alkaline water, that is the fire. And the Chanyuan celestial's joy and selflessness, that's the pure gold shining through once all the impurities of a modern selfish life have been completely burned away. The author actually views the members as ripe crops, just waiting for a heavenly harvest. The whole culmination of this immense suffering, mixed with intense joy, is seen as completing a sacred task given by this greatest creator. By enduring the fire, the crop has finally ripened up and is fully ready to be harvested to heaven. I want to leave you with this incredibly provocative final thought from Shufeng. I am dying happy now. Wow, it is such a powerful conclusion to this text, and it really challenges us to reconsider what it truly takes to find ultimate fulfillment. I mean, can extreme deprivation, when you pair it with a totally selfless mindset and absolute presence in the moment, actually forge a deeper happiness than a comfortable life ever could? It is absolutely a fascinating paradox to think about. Thank you so much for joining me for today's explainer, and I really hope this story gave you something incredible to chew on.